Tell your friends! Tell your friends about Hooks and Ladders, but also about songstudio.ca. You can get all kinds of information about songwriting, tips, and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, like, follow, and subscribe. That's what we need. That's what you need.
Here's another peek at what we did at SongStudio Online last August. Hope you enjoy.
In the mentoring thing, I was just struck with how kind you were. Have you ever run across mentors for you, producers or whatever, who are dicks, basically, who are,
Sure. Yeah, I think we've all run into, I guess you would call them shamers. They do proliferate in businesses such as this. So yeah, I've had to work with unbelievable bullies, to the point where it almost broke me when I was 18, but when I started running into them when I was in my mid 30s, I kind of knew how to handle them. But yeah, bullies are endemic in this business, and a lot of people that are in this business are broken. And so because it's so broken, they will take it out on you and victimize you. And if they can sense that you're weak, heaven help you, because the bullies always go after the people they perceive as weak.
Right. And to a degree, all of us are vulnerable in this if we've chosen to do this. I mean, it's not an accident that we want to perform and would like approval. Those are things that are important to performers and to artists in the performing arts. So if we want approval, that kind of makes us vulnerable right there.
Sure.
Even if we're able to sublimate that desire for approval so that it's not, so important, there are people who will sense that and take advantage of it. I also think it's because it's an ego-driven business too. We're putting ourselves out there, that people will take advantage of that, and that can be tough.
Well, also because your songs are often very personal. So
personal,
that feeling that if they don't like the song, that they don't like you. It's sometimes really hard. It's hard to kind of separate the essential you, the authentic you, with the actual song that you're writing. I mean, when I was starting out, I'd have these big performers come and they would walk out of, I'd be playing the Riverboat, and these iconic performers would just walk right out in the middle of a song. And that was their way of showing me that they didn't like me. But
wow.
For some reason, strangely enough, it didn't really. I thought, oh, this is kind of interesting, but it didn't really affect me. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a healthy way to be about it, because they were probably projecting what would hurt them by doing that, and if it ended up being something that you just thought was interesting, then they didn't really succeed in doing that. Drea, one of our participants, Drea Lake, asks, she says, "Hi Dan, I appreciate that you also started with a classical background. I do too, and naturally associate, I think, emotionally with melodies with gentle builds and changes like Bach. Sometimes I know that I need to create more of an emotional rise with more intense shifts in melody in my composition, but I don't feel it naturally. Any tips on connecting emotionally with new melodic structures so that it comes out as genuine?" And she says, "Thanks for being here."
Well, one really important part of, in my opinion, writing really powerful songs happens to be dynamics. The idea of starting at a very intimate, quiet place, and then exploding as the song continues to unfold, and also the power of the reverse dynamic, where you're going from this huge peak, then dropping right down to, say, just guitar and voice. So I think part of what can help hammer the emotion of the song across to the listener is using those kind of dynamics, and also, holding back on your vocal range, which is another way of saying dynamic, so that your vocal doesn't really explode into the ozones until you're hitting that third chorus.
That really makes a lot of sense to me. You talked about it when I watched you mentor before. You talked about it as providing contrast as well, which I think is really important. I hear a lot of songs that are pretty samey from top to bottom, emotionally, dynamically, and harmonically. They might be the same chords, same 4 chords in the same order from top to bottom in a song. And while the melody may change, I find there's not enough change for me. I wonder, though, sometimes, and this is a question, I wonder if that's generational. Like you
Well,
and I listening to Motown songs, where if there was a bridge, it's going to be really different, but the chorus is always really different from the verse.
well, I agree that there isn't as much of a palpable dynamic often in the songs that we're hearing now. It's as if we feel now that our attention span is so fractured because there's just so many things. When we were growing up, wasn't even a cell phone. I had a party line in my house, where you had to share your phone with four other people. There was no social media, there was no internet, no cell phone. So there weren't so many things competing with your attention. Now you got like 50,000 different things to watch between Netflix and Amazon Prime, social media, WhatsApp, cell phones, text. And I think there's this feeling that you have to hit them within the first 10 seconds of the song, or else they're going to flip to something else. So therefore they're not spending time in those dynamics out of fear that if you're starting really slow and low in the emotional range, that you're going to lose that listener. But I don't necessarily agree with that theory, but you don't see the same kind of dynamics now as you would see, say, in Bridge Over Troubled Water, which was released in 1970.
Yeah, no, it's really true. There are obviously there are exceptions here and there, but I hear a lot of stuff that sort of sits there, and it might sit there beautifully in that one spot. But I maybe I'm just used to hearing more change.
Mm-hmm.
Coraline points out, by the way, that sometimes a good producer can help with these aspects, with the aspect of dynamics and change and so forth, and that's true for me. And I think this is probably true for you too, Dan. I'd like to hear it in the writing, in the actual writing of the song, rather than production. Although, Coraline's quite right. Production is a place where that can come from. Let me ask you this before we wrap up, since nobody's jumping in at this moment. Where do you start typically when you write a song? What is the typical? I know it can be different every time, but what's the way you're most comfortable with starting a song?
Well, usually I go to the guitar or to the piano, and then I just start fumbling around with chords, seeing if I can come across a really interesting and fresh chord progression. And often on piano, which is my second instrument, so I'm not as good as I am on guitar. Often I'll fall on the wrong chord, but then I'll sometimes discover that wrong chord actually is a perfect chord because it was unplanned and unexpected. So very often I'm just playing around with music, playing around with chords, and out of those chords, a melody naturally comes out of that chord progression. And then often I find that the first day I'm just working on the music, and it's the second day that the lyrics start to come. But other times I'm feeling, I moved into the house I'm living in now 4.5 years ago with my mom, who was about to go to Switzerland to have assisted suicide. So naturally, I was going through all kinds of incredibly powerful emotions, living with my mom, who was totally healthy, knowing that she wasn't going to be around in say 5 months. So I wrote a lot of songs about how I felt about that. And so because I was in such a powerful emotional situation, I kind of knew whenever I go to the guitar or piano, I'd be writing about it because it was the only way I could process something that was so incredibly painful for me.
Right. So songwriting, as a therapeutic act is important for you, clearly.
Me, yeah, I think it's true for a lot of people.
No question. Yeah. But it's good to hear it from somebody, with your level of success and accomplishment, because I think that people who have your kind of success, they can be blasé about it, about where the songs come from, and they can say, well, I don't know, I just tossed that one off, and it's great to hear this deep connection, that that you have this deep connection with what you're producing, with what you're making, the art that you're making.
Well, thank you. Well, it seems to me that historically these songs do come out. I mean, think about Diane Warren's "Because You Love Me" for Celine Dion. That was a song written about her dad after he died. Or "Tears in Heaven," which was co-written by Eric Clapton after losing his son in that tragic way. Or again, going back to "Every Breath You Take." I mean, Sting definitely did not make that song up. Or "Against All Odds" by Phil Collins. I mean, it seems like so many of the powerful songs that we've grown up with came out of very, very specific experiences that were very, very powerful to the songwriter.
Right. Rather than just being, made up for the purposes of writing a song. That's, yeah. Well, that's, again, it's great to hear. And it's great to talk with you as always. I hadn't talked with you in a few years. I think the last time we talked like this was maybe 5 years ago. And it was great to see you earlier in the summer. And I'm so glad you're able to join us here again.
It's always great to meet you, Blair. I'm really touched that you would invite me to do the songwriting mentoring a couple of days, but also wonderful just to talk to you like this as well.
Oh, well, that's nice. Nice of you to say. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Okay, well, in lieu of any other questions, people have been saying that it's amazing hearing you speak about this and so forth. And so if you would, everybody give a virtual round of applause to Dan Hill for delivering a wonderful keynote address. Thanks so much, Dan.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Alistair. And of course, thank you so much, Blair. Always wonderful to see you guys again.
Right. Well, we'll see you soon, I hope.
Fantastic. You have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thanks for taking a glimpse with us inside the SongStudio workshop from last August. Stay tuned for more.